Okay, I'm back and I realized I have to do this on my phone to invite Melissa. So I'm gonna tag you and we can do this. I believe in us. Oh, let's see. I think it's possible. There you are.
Working?
Yay! I just have to figure out a way to do this that doesn't make my arm want to die.
Oh no.
I always forget that I have to. Hey, Diana.
Aw.
I always forget that you have to do these on your phone.
Oh yeah.
But, or are you on your computer? Are you on your phone?
No, I'm also on my phone. I'm on a phone that doesn't actually work as a phone, but I save it for Facebook Lives so that I can do.
Yeah. Smart. Genius.
Let me.
All right.
I'm going to share your post really quick.
Smart. Genius. Let me. All right. If I turn this sideways, will it let me do it? No. I've mocked it really quick. Experiment. If I turn this sideways, let me do it.
Did it work?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, hi, Caitlin and Tony.
Yeah. It's so good to see your face.
Oh. I have this like funky light that I'm trying out, so if it falls in the middle, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I feel like it is. So I just got back. I thought I was going to be late because I honestly just got back from trying to help 3 people report sexual assaults to the police.
Oh my God.
Like, appropriately enough for our conversation.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, this is just going to be one of those conversations that goes however it goes.
That's okay.
Yeah. So introduce yourself so that my people know who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, everyone. I'm Melissa Ann McDaniel. I'm trying to get rid of the McDaniel on my name, actually, because I just found out that he's out of prison again, and it makes me a little leery. So eventually I may change it to just Melissa Ann on all of my social media stuff. So anyway, I am the Amazon best-selling author of Who Will Love Me, a holistic approach to building meaningful relationships after sexual assault. And Meredith's heard this story like 100 times, but I'm going to share it again. So at the beginning of 2018, I just had this calling that if you do not see her, you have to be her, meaning that if I do not see somebody speaking up about life after sexual assault, I need to be that person. For me, I wanted to see somebody who was out, doing well on the outside, right? Somebody that I keep seeing all these notifications pop up. Hi, Mom. Hi, Tony. Yeah, one of my old students. I don't know how to I can't see what's happening. Anyway, long story short, I knew that if I did not see her out there speaking up about what life really looked like, I had to be her. And for a few months, I was scared, right? I didn't want to be her. I didn't want to be the one that talked about, what it's like to come home. And I always use the example of crying on my kitchen floor because that's where it normally hits me is in the kitchen. I'm doing the dishes and it just hits me. But yet I was always told not to talk about it as well. So I was told people would judge me, that they would think less of me. Um, a lot, I think there was a lot of victim blaming that happened with me. And so I carried a lot of that around for years. And I just finally decided, like, I have to be me. If I can't fully be me and all that I am, then life is going to be miserable.
And so then you decided to sort of speak out about your experience, and you hadn't been it hadn't been a secret about your experience, really. You just didn't talk about it, right?
I didn't talk about it. So and actually in some ways it had been a secret because I really only told a handful of people, maybe. When I was going through the trial, even my best friends didn't know I was going through a rape trial. So I would leave town to go to the city where the trial was happening, and people would call me to go on study dates, and I'd be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I've got to go to dinner with somebody else," or make up an excuse or a lie because I didn't want them to know that I was going through a rape trial.
Yeah. And so then we met after you wrote your book. We met at an author event.
Yes.
And so that your people know, I'm a lawyer and I'm a certified life coach, and I help women stop sexual harassment without quitting their jobs. So we have like crossover interests.
Right.
And obviously, like I did today, sometimes I help people report sexual assaults because it's such a difficult thing to do.
So hard.
And so I kind of wanted to ask you some questions about what you think about that. Like, what do you think makes it so, because I know in your book you talk a little bit about how you waited 4 days, 3 days
Somewhere
to
around
report.
it was.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact time frame I waited, but I did wait.
Mm-hmm. And so I'll call police for my clients sometimes just to say, I have a client who wants to report, who's the right person for her to report to.
Mm-hmm.
And I inevitably from the dispatch person get the question, well, why did they wait to report? Why didn't they call while, like,
Right.
in the middle of being assaulted? And I'm like, I mean, on the one hand, I'm like, you clearly don't understand how this works. And then on the other hand, I'm like, why don't we?
Right. And I think, so for me personally, when I was trying to decide if I should report or not, for me, part of reporting meant that I actually had to admit that it happened. And
yeah,
I didn't want to, things like that shouldn't happen to girls like me, or so I thought, or I was told, right? That doesn't happen. And so then when it does happen, there's all of this shame and this guilt. And reporting it is just one more confirmation that, yes, this happened. And then I was also met with, I met with a counselor, and I think you read this part, who basically told me that it was up to me and my decision. And in that mindset, in that state of mind that I was in, knowing, yes, I was sexually assaulted, but no, I don't want to really admit to the world that this happened to me. I think it makes me teary-eyed, actually.
yeah.
I think that there's no real right answer to tell a victim. It is my choice, or it is their choice and their decision. But I think coming at it from a loving way versus I think the counselor was taught to not show emotion or to show anything. And so when you're not,
this is a school counselor that you're talking about, right?
correct.
Yeah.
And so not being met with that empathy or that loving kindness, I think also made me want to not report, because I was like, oh my gosh, if this is how the counselor's reacting to this, what is the rest of this journey going to look like?
And a lot of the language that I hear from especially school counselors is, this is a really serious allegation. Make sure that you know what you want before you do something about it.
Right.
And then even, which in itself is kind of threatening language.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've had a number of clients say, and then that their main takeaway from meeting with a school counselor or a school investigator even is, you're not going to be believed.
Yep.
So give up.
That's something else. She didn't tell me that I wasn't going to be believed, but she did tell me that reporting makes it worse for the victim.
Yeah.
And so that was something that I had to carry around. Okay, is this going to make my life worse if I report?
And then your experience was kind of initial. I mean, it's my takeaway from your book, and you can tell me if I'm wrong about this, is that overall it was worth reporting, but it was definitely not a positive experience. And like your case was not pursued. Are you getting like a weird feedback?
No, I'm not.
I'm just gonna, oh, now I'm not getting it. We're good.
Okay. Yeah, so my case was not pursued. They said, so what happened? Hi, Dorina. Hi, Olivia. After I reported, I was told, so they had me go down and look at mugshots and do all that, and his mugshots
Yeah.
there. But what I did after it happened to me is I sent him an email saying that I was 50% to blame, because in trying to make sense of everything, I thought that it was easier to blame myself for 50%. I literally wrote 50%, but not all of it. And so that email, and also reporting it later, meant that they thought there was not enough evidence.
Yeah. And so what my takeaway was from what you wrote was like the 50% you were thinking was like doing nothing or like allowing him to be in your home.
Right. For me, in the moment, the 50% keeps popping up. I don't know how to turn off notifications.
I don't either. I think it's fine.
Okay. For me, the 50% was that I let him into my bed because I did,
Yeah.
and that I kissed him. And so
Yeah.
he, being a man, icing him like we do, what we're wearing.
Yeah.
It's our fault because of what we wear. It's our fault because of,
Yeah.
because we choose to kiss them. Mind you, I still had my underwear and everything on and all of that, but
Yeah.
it's still my fault. And that's how I was making sense of it at the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, what do you think about this? I think that women are really raised to take a lot of responsibility for social situations and to assume that men are not capable of having responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is disrespectful to men as much as it's not fair to women.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I would totally agree with you. And I think my mindset and even the comments that were made to me after were that, well, I let him into my bed. So what did I expect? I let him into my apartment. That was an invitation, obviously. So we are met with a lot more social responsibility than men. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so you ended up, like, tell the story of how the police ended up reaching out to you
Mm-hmm.
again, how it ended up happening that you
Yeah.
ended up having to testify, not in your
In my
own
own trial, right?
trial.
So what
Yeah.
happened is after I reported it, they couldn't find him. And then after going through the mug shots, I learned that he had done this to a minor in California. So he wasn't even supposed to be in Washington State. And so I had to move for my safety. I didn't know where he was. I didn't know what was going to happen. And I drove back and forth 5 hours every 2 weeks for a temporary restraining order. And when I finally got the call, it makes me sick to my stomach still. They called to tell me that they found him. It's gonna make me cry. But they found him because he did it to somebody else. And so the guilt, hi Destiny, that I carried thinking that if I would have reported this sooner, if I didn't send the email, then maybe this wouldn't have happened to her. So
Which is another taking the
right, taking the responsibility, like it was my fault that she had been raped. And so after that, they asked me I should have got tissues. Do
you need to go get some? Do you want to go get some?
It's okay, we'll just let them fall. It's been like kind of a couple weeks. So, oh, hi Destiny. So after I found out that happened to her, I went back to what I thought would be a permanent restraining order. And he asked to have representation. And so I had to leave and go back for another time in 2 weeks to get that restraining order. And the restraining order would last until, or was contingent on the outcome of the other person's trial.
Oh.
Yeah. And so after that, I started going to school again. I just kind of pretended like nothing ever happened. I didn't tell anybody. I started a new job. I thought that my part was done. And then one day I got a call from an attorney saying, hey, we need you to testify as a character witness. And, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, so you had to both do a deposition and then appear in trial later.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And it sounds like the deposition was even harder than the trial experience.
The deposition, that one makes me cry too.
Yeah.
So I actually, and I think it was before the deposition, and I think it's the reason they did the deposition. I couldn't handle all the phone calls, and I wasn't telling anybody it was happening. I was trying to live this double life. And I said, I can't do this. Like, as much as I felt guilty and responsible, like I needed to do this for the other woman. Hi, Daphne.
Mhm.
I couldn't do it. And I told them no. And so then they subpoenaed me. Um, and so they chose to fly over to where I live to do
Yeah.
the deposition. And my counselor chose to go with me. Well, there's a lot of people popping on. Hi, Shelly. Hi.
Yeah. Hey, everybody.
Yeah. So when they came over here for the deposition was worse than the trial. The defense attorney like wouldn't even let me get a word in. I was made to feel like I was about not even this big. Like it was totally
Yeah.
my fault. He kept saying things like I laid on my back to receive him. Um, he
Yeah.
would say that I intentionally left out information, which I didn't intentionally leave anything out. I just, when after you've been raped, at least for me, like it was hard to remember all the things and to know all the things
Yeah.
to say when you report. So that happened. And then I did end up going over for the trial as well. And I had never met the other woman until it was time for the trial. Actually, I couldn't meet her until after we had both testified.
So one thing that I a lot of times see my clients do is like even in deposition continue to take some responsibility or like believe the things that the opposing counsel says,
Right.
um, and take them onto themselves, and it like reinforces that self-blame that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it really interesting, so I'm curious to hear what you think about this. But one of the let me think about it. One of the ways that I see it happen is like I'm even just thinking of the example that I had this afternoon. It was a couple of people talking about a different person's report of a sexual assault.
Mm-hmm.
And what they said was they were drunk. And so and what the reality was this much older man was pressuring a much younger woman to consume alcohol and providing it to her. And so even that language of they were drunk to me is so interesting of why we say it that way when it's not. But I think that our brain, I think it's what you said of if we acknowledge what's really happening,
Mm-hmm.
it's harder.
It's harder. It's easier to say that I was drunk. I wasn't drunk when it happened to me, but it's easier for me
Yeah.
to say I was drunk because it almost gives them like a free pass or gives them, you know, it gives them the right to do that. Maybe I wasn't quite in the right mindset to say no or ugh. But the reality.
And then we're like, I think our brains are like, I didn't say no, so I must be the one who was wrong. Like as though not saying no justifies somebody else's. It's really, I mean, I don't mean to be like a psychopath about it, but I think it's a really interesting thing that our brains do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's to protect us from
Mm-hmm.
acknowledging the way that other people behave.
Right. It absolutely, for me, was a form of protection. And
Except it doesn't protect us because then you end up on the kitchen floor sobbing,
right,
right?
right.
Or in the bathroom after the deposition.
Yeah, on the floor, and people are coming in from their offices wondering why this woman is hysterical on the floor in the bathroom. That bathroom was disgusting. But there was
Yeah.
nothing. I mean, I didn't know what else to do. I mean, fever.
Yeah.
That deposition was the worst part of everything.
Yeah. And then I think that like a lot of times what I see people do is think if I ignore this, if I pretend it's not happening, then I will be normal and my life will go on. And it's sort of like segregates you off from a piece of yourself or something.
Absolutely. That's actually totally how I felt. I felt like I couldn't fully be me, but I had to pretend to be this version of me that everybody else wanted to see. I had to pretend to be the version that had it together, that was still going to school, that was still working. None of my colleagues knew that I was going through a rape trial. My professors at school didn't know because my initial interaction with a professor at the previous college was so terrible. I told myself I'm not telling anybody because the less they know, the easier my life will be to go on, the easier that I can be normal.
And that first interaction with it was like a math professor, right? Remind me what, because you just wanted a few days off.
So I had actually missed a few days of class, and I didn't tell him ahead of time that I was going to miss class. And so the counselor gave me a note, and in the note, it didn't say anything about that I had been raped. It just said that he looked at me and said, anybody can get a note from the counselor. You're not excused. And here I am, like, broken-hearted little thing, like trying to figure out how to do life. Like, you go to the counselor, that's what you're told to do. The counselor gives you this piece of paper saying that they're going to excuse you, and you go there, and this giant and male, not that I hate men, but I mean, same height as the guy who sexually assaulted me, same skin color, everything, looks at me and says, basically, I don't care. I said, well, can I tell you what happened to me? I don't care. That was it. Like, he did not care. And so I'm guessing, I have no idea what happened. I never went back to class. And I'm guessing that the counselor must have called him or something because he put a C on my transcript and I didn't take a final, which is,
I mean, but even then, a C is an impact. I feel like
yeah.
I heard a story about at like a Oregon institution about a conversation that they were having about how under Title IX there is a requirement to like make up for the university to make up or like allow a repeat of a class if somebody has been impacted by sexual harassment, sexual assault. And the story was everybody's in a meeting and one of the people there said they were talking about a specific instance where a woman had been kidnapped and like left out in a field, but she was like a very good student. She was like an A+ student, and she had gotten a B or like maybe 3 Bs in the next semester. And so the person's comment was, Bs, really? Are we worried about Bs? Are we really going to help someone?
Yes.
Yes.
You got to be kidding me. And for somebody who is a good student and who wants good grades, and that's something that like validates me to see that C was like.
And that you worked for.
Right.
That you,
yeah.
deserve better. Yeah.
So for me, that made it really difficult. Oh, there's Angela.
Hey, Angela.
Tell professors after that. And I did continue on with my education because that was something I was not willing to give up. And my grades were, I almost said a bad word. My grades were terrible.
You're allowed to say that on my... I hereby give you permission to curse when you're talking about
If you look at my grades, though, they go up when there's no trial or anything happening, and then as soon as the attorneys start filing, my grades go down, and it just was a roller coaster.
Which totally makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then you met this other, I always use the word victim because it's a legal word. How do you feel about that word?
No, I'm actually, I feel better about the word victim sometimes than survivor.
Me too.
For me, I use survivor a lot because that's a language that a lot of the women that come to me use and feel more comfortable.
Totally.
I don't know that I guess I can call myself a survivor in that context, but I was definitely a victim of what happened to me. I don't live as a victim anymore, but I can say that I was a victim.
Yeah.
And so when I met the other victim, that was, I don't know the best way to describe it. Meeting her was almost like meeting myself. We had very similar interests, similar backgrounds, similar future goals and aspirations. It was kind of a surreal experience. And that night, the first night that I met her, I actually was going to drive back the 5 hours after I testified, and I ended up staying at her house that night. And we just talked all night long, just about everything. And I won't share her experience because that's not really mine to share. But just having that time together was really powerful and also really heartbreaking because there I was confronted with what I thought was my fault. And I definitely did.
And you had to blame her if you're going to blame yourself, right?
Right. Yeah. It makes me teary-eyed still.
Yeah.
So it was a very surreal experience. Her family was super kind to me throughout the whole process. But then the next day when I was there in at the courthouse, they wouldn't let us walk into the courtroom together because they didn't want the jury to think that we knew each other, or you would know the legal part of that as to why we couldn't walk in together.
I mean, people have different opinions about that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a very traditional model of how to view things, that like there's a presumption that if there are multiple complainants, you don't want to feed the jury. Juries have the same type of brain issues that we have about not wanting to acknowledge that these things happen.
Right.
And so they're often more willing to say, these women are conspiring against this poor man than this man could do this horrific thing.
Right.
Because it seems like a more acceptable version of reality to think that someone would conspire than that someone would attack someone else and violate someone else, right? And so my particular view is that, on the other hand, juries, like when they see people supporting each other and believing each other, I think there's a positive to that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't.
They let us sit together when they gave the sentencing, if that's what the part is called, but they didn't let us walk in together through any part of the trial
because they don't want it to look like you guys like are girlfriends who are like, this boy is really mean to us and won't date us, so we're gonna make up these lies.
Right. And we totally,
which people should think that.
Yeah. We totally would have looked like girlfriends. I'm telling you, we just totally clicked. We don't speak anymore. It became too hard, I think. Our lives, I think me masking everything and pretending like nothing was wrong almost appeared. My assumption is, because I can't speak for her, but it was really hard for her to watch my life go on and me to continue to succeed. But really on the inside, I was totally dead and dying. But to the outside, it looked like my life was just progressing and nothing ever happened.
Which I think sometimes is harder because there's that dissonance between what your outside life looks like and what your inside life looks like than just falling apart all the time. I don't know. I mean, I guess both are hard.
I think for me personally, if I wouldn't have done it that way, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Yeah.
I don't think. I think, you know, when I was writing about it and as I worked through a lot of my stuff, I had to learn that was something that served me extremely well. It got me through school. It got my career started for me. It got me to travel around the world. Like if I would have not tried to hide it, I don't think I would have been able to go and do the things that I did.
And those were the things that ultimately healed you.
Absolutely.
And that led to you being okay. I want to talk to you about that. And I am sorry to tell you that my phone is about to run out of batteries. So what I'd like to do is plug my phone in, like go off and then plug my phone in and then do part 2.
Okay.
Where we talk about like how you have really changed your life and changed like the inside to match more of the outside. Does that sound okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, stay tuned, everyone. I'll be back in like 2 minutes.
Okay, just shoot me a text when you're ready, or I'll try to pop on here. Okay.
Okay.
I don't know how to hang up.
I have to do it.